And then over there you see is you join as a participant, and then the code is this one, Translating Euro Workshop Madrid. If everybody is ready, we are going to see if it is working, because this is the first question, and you should see it on your phones and be able to answer. You are not able to answer, or you don't see it? Yeah, okay, good. We are getting some answers. Uncertain. Okay, good. Dynamic, machine, AI, technology, message. Oh, wow, I like that one. Promising. AI. Yeah, message. Adaptation, I like that one. Technology, promising. Okay, well, it's working. Thank you. Well, this is already promising, I can say. We will try to, we will look at some of these topics during this workshop. So thank you. ChatGPT, incertitude, okay. Good, thank you. Thank you for putting promising over there, so we can see it. Let's start, and we will start. Before starting, I just wanted to briefly introduce our speakers. I will just briefly name them so you know them, and then I will explain a bit about them. We have here at my side Nicola Kunte. She is head of the Knowledge Management Unit at the European Commission's Directorate General for Translation, and she's my colleague, therefore. And then we have Nike Pokorn. She is Professor of Translation Studies and Chair of English in the Department of Translation Studies at the University of Ljubljana. Then we have with us Patricia Rodríguez Inés, is a senior lecturer in the Department of Translation, Interpreting and East Asian Studies of the Universitat Autónoma de Barcelona. And then we have Yolanda Palomares Jiménez, is a freelance conference interpreter and translator, and she is the founder of Covenant Global, which is a multilingual communications consulting company. Thank you again to our speakers. And without further ado, we will competence framework. She will explain what that is, and then she will talk about professional profiles and how they have changed and are changing, and about knowledge sharing. And I will say a little bit more about Nicola because I have it here. And she is now head of the Knowledge Management Unit, and her unit is dedicated to providing training opportunities and knowledge sharing activities for DGT staff, and also maintains strategic partnerships with academics, language professionals, and external experts. And the aim is to foster collaboration and share essential knowledge. And she has a background as a translator, and Nicola has spent many years working in the German language department of the DGT before transitioning to more transversal roles. And until recently, many of you maybe know that, she served as the main coordinator of the European Masters in Translation of the network, where she played a pivotal role in shaping the network over the past decade. So, Nicola, you want to move? Yes, so you can do your presentation.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction, and also thank you very much for the organizers for inviting me to be here and to try to share our expertise or our knowledge, and also our experience in how we see the profession of the translation profession develop in-house in DGT. So I was asked to start with the presentation of the EMT competence framework, because this is something that we have promoted or supported very much in DGTs for over 10 years now. I don't know how much the audience knows about the European Masters in Translation, so I thought I'd give a quick overview of what it actually is. So EMT stands for European Master in Translation, and it's a quality label that the DGT gives to certain translation study programs at master's level that fulfill certain criteria, and we select these members of the network. So those who fulfill the criteria can become a member of the network for 5 years, and after 5 years we have another selection round, because we want to encourage the study programs to constantly have a critical assessment of what they are doing and to evolve, and not just sit back and say, okay, now we have proved we are among the best in Europe, but we want them to develop and to adapt to the constantly evolving needs of the translation market. And that brings me also to the general objective of the network, which is to improve translator training, so that the graduates can be sure to find jobs and can integrate into the job market more easily. And in the long run, we really hope that by training across Europe skilled and qualified translators, we will also contribute to enhancing the recognition of the profession as such. So, as I said, the applicants for EMT membership have to fulfill certain criteria, and one is they have to cover certain criteria and competences in their curricula, and these are described in the EMT competence framework. The competence framework is one, if not the main document, core document of the network. It describes, as I said, the 5 key competences which graduates of a translation study program should have acquired. So it's important to understand this is not a curriculum. It is a framework that describes a C2 level of the target language. target language, and also already the necessary cultural awareness that comes with it. Of course, there's always room for perfectionize, but the precondition is that when you enter a master's program, you should already have the basis, and at master's level, there shouldn't be language teaching shouldn't be the core of the teaching anymore, but other competences come into play here. Oops, the wrong key. So this is how it looks like. I'm not going through all the skills descriptors here now because it will take too much time, but I just wanted to show you how it is organized and structured. I didn't have enough space to show the introduction for the translation competence, but you can see on the technology side there comes the introduction and then the different skills descriptors. And I have highlighted here two more technology-related things, which are machine translation. There's a reference to machine translation and a reference to data literacy. And I did so to showcase or to explain how difficult it is to formulate such a framework so that it is general enough so that many universities all across Europe can use it as a basis to design the curricula, but it also has to be detailed enough to be meaningful. And then there comes another factor, which is the timeliness, because we want it to be as timeless as possible so that it can cover many years. So the latest version dates from 2022. And as I said, data literacy is already mentioned, and we were all very happy that we had come to this concept and introduced it, but we realized that maybe, after all, there might be a need to update it because we have now AI in the room. We have seen it. It was one of the biggest words in the word cloud. We will see whether the EMT network will consider this as necessary, and Nike is, by the way, leading the working group for competences in the EMT network, and they will take a closer look into this and see whether an update is needed. But this would be a really fast update after only 3 or 4 years before the previous or the very first framework was drafted in 2009 and was valid until 2017. And now, only after 3 years, we're already thinking of having to adapt this competence framework. And this only shows the speed at which we are seeing the profession developing, and especially the transformation because of technology development. So here it's just a little timeline to show that we had an incredible 20 years where, translators were still using dictaphones and typewriters. I started in the Commission in '95, and I was one of the first to ask for a PC, to be equipped with a PC, and it was only starting then. And you will see that the steps where we see a change, the intervals become closer. And each time when there was a decisive new element introduced, actually in DGT we have started to also introduce new profiles. For instance, in 2014, we have introduced what we call the master trainers. These are very tech-savvy colleagues who train our staff on new tools that are being introduced in DGT and on using these new applications because it happens so fast and so often that we cannot wait until an external contractor comes and teaches them, so they do this on the job. And the same for like in 2017, suddenly we had the appearance of neural machine translation, and we shortly after that introduced a staff profile called Language Technology Coordinator. These are colleagues who oversee the development and the implementation of new technologies, who also test new tools and explore the market for tools that might be relevant for us to integrate into our workflows. So this is again a new profile, and now since 2021, DGT is also the leading Directorate General in the Commission when it comes to AI. We are hosting and organizing the AI at EC network, which is a network of staff in the whole Commission who are interested in sharing knowledge and good practices about AI applications and about use cases in which AI could help us and them to simplify routine tasks and how it could be implemented or integrated into the workflows, not only in translation, but also in other policy DGs, as we call them, like agriculture DGs, so those who have draft legislation and things like that. And we, as a translation service of the Commission, are very proud to say that our translators actually play a crucial role in developing all these AI-based services, because they have the linguistic skills and they have also now acquired some of the technological skills that help the IT people to develop the services that you can see here on the screen, like e-translation is probably the most known one, but we have also developed a tool which is offered to the whole Commission called e-briefing, which helps colleagues to draft briefings for commissioners or whatever in policy fields. We have the latest edition is e-reply, where policy officers can use AI to reply to parliamentary questions or to requests from member states. Of course, this will not be a fully fledged reply, but it's a first draft that they can use and work on, and it helps them to save time. And I'm proud to say that we, as a translation service, we have contributed to that. Of course, translation remains our main and our core business, and most of the colleagues still do translation, but an increasing proportion of staff members do work on these AI-based services. And this need to how shall I say it? So we see that they take on more tasks that are not pure translation tasks. And we have to train them and give them the opportunities to develop these new competences. And this is where my unit comes into play. We are called Knowledge Management Unit, but we do knowledge sharing mainly in-house, but also in cases like here today, where we try to interact and to learn how others work. And in these knowledge sharing activities that we offer, we have seen a clear trend that most of the knowledge sharing activities that we organize for our staff are related to technology and AI. They really want to learn and need to learn what it takes to, develop a large language model, or all these new skills that are necessary and they deem necessary to be able to perform the tasks that they are required. And other things which are not purely translation related but are necessary are thematic knowledge. So they feel the need. We have a service where the resources are shrinking, so we cannot have specialists for all the policy fields that the Commission is working on. So we have to, the translators have to be able to translate from agriculture to economics and cover all types of thematic fields, and that's where they try to get this knowledge and to learn from their peers. And of course, quality with increased machine translation has become also very crucial, and they exchange on quality guidelines that we have developed in-house, and also on different practices on how to post-edit and things like that. And terminology too, of course, because this is linguistic data. This is the new gold standard for translations and for AI. So this has to be curated, it has to be managed, and this is also part of terminology work nowadays in DGT, and that's why the knowledge sharing activities do cover a lot of terminology as well. And this need of getting to learn new competences is also reflected in the learning packages that my unit has prepared for the staff. So we have one which is for newcomers, which is actually basically technology, I have to say. It's really so that to give the new translators, newly recruited translators, an opportunity to learn all the tools that we have, all the applications, and to onboard them as soon as possible. Then we have a learning package, again, very technology oriented for these colleagues who accept to become language technology coordinators. So it includes everything they need to learn. And we have packages for quality officers and editors, because we do editing, language editing of the originals that are drafted in the commission, very often by people whose native language is not English. That needs to be done, and that's what they do. So, in my view, this shows that actually translator training needs to take account of this, developing additional competences for translators. So the pure translator training will still stay, but I think there has to be something added. And I think this, what I showed before, the AI-based services shows where we are going. I think translators nowadays need to have an understanding of how large language models are being built, how they work, and perhaps also a bit of AI engineering, prompt engineering, so that they know how to talk to the machine, so that they get meaningful results. And this, of course, for me means that translator trainers should be able to transmit this knowledge also to their students. And I know it's more easily said than done, because it takes time, and to have to retrain some of the teaching staff. And here, that's why I've chosen now to come to present the next slide, because there's been a really new initiative. This is really brand new from last week. The European Commission has published a communication on the Union of Skills. And I'm mentioning it because I think it has a lot of opportunities here for universities, because the aim of this Union of Skills is to allow everybody in the European Union to develop the skills that they need for their jobs, and on each level, so vocational training or higher education, but higher education is mentioned specifically. And they also, the communication and this Union of Skills also aims at upskilling and reskilling people in the European Union for the digital transition. I'm not going to talk about the green transition, but here I think the digital transition is very relevant for us. And the aim is also to have this knowledge circulate across Europe, so that it's not only developed in one part of Europe, but everywhere, to increase the competitiveness of European societies and companies. And of course, it's also hoping to attract and to retain talent in Europe. This is part. So all these are the big aims of this new communication and this new Union of Skills. And I've looked into it. Now I need to have a look into my notes, because it's brand new, as I said, so I don't know exactly by heart what each of these initiatives encompass. But as I said, they do have a lot of things in store for the universities, because they realized that AI is a bit underdeveloped among a lot of university staff, and so they plan to come up in 2026 with an initiative which is called AI in Education, and that aims at integrating AI effectively into the learning and study programs. There is same aim is the AI in Education initiative. And then there's going to be an initiative for EU teachers and trainers agenda to address the attractiveness of academic careers through in the EU by aiming at improving career prospects and working conditions of higher education academic staff. So there are lots of opportunities in there. I just encourage you to keep an eye on the pages of the European Commission and to search out for funding opportunities, because all these initiatives will be accompanied by funding opportunities via our funding programs like Erasmus Plus or Digital Europe, and they will aim at exactly what I just explained. And if you think now, okay, funding opportunities means creating projects and reaching out to partners. I just quickly want to show you another initiative that DGT has now engaged in. We have joined forces with our partners from the interpretation DG, SCIC, to create a knowledge center on translation and interpretation. So this is a center that aims at bringing together all the knowledge about these language professions and to share it with the outside world, with perhaps the general public, students or pupils who are interested in languages and would like to find out what it takes to become a translator and interpreter, but also to reach out to the professionals who are already established in the market, to companies, to universities, to share their knowledge and to share resources so that we can together develop the profession further. And I would just like to quickly, if I still have the time, enter the knowledge page to show it to you. It's a bit, so it was created by our colleagues from the Interpretation Directorate General, but we have now joined the knowledge base and have already also integrated some translation relevant content. We are still working on that, but I wanted to show you this tab here, which is about research, innovation and publication, because I'm talking here to PhD students, and we would very much love to give you an opportunity to also publish the results of your studies, and not publish but disseminate them. So if you have some research results that you would be willing to share on translation, it would be great if we could put them here, because we won't, as I said, would like to make this the place to be if persons want to learn something about translation and translation studies. And if you're interested in discussing topics and reaching out to partners, you can even join communities here. It's meant to be also a collaborative space. So we reach out to students, to trainers, to associations, if they have knowledge to share or if they want to discuss topics with partners from the sector, from the translation profession, they can do this and go into these communities, create one. It's open to everyone. You only have to ask for an EU login, but everything is explained on this site. And then you can create a community and, for instance, already start planning a project on upskilling teachers on AI and do the preparation for a potential project to be funded by EU money. So this is what I wanted to share with you. I was very fast, but I just wanted to say and present all this. I hope you find it relevant, and if you have questions later on, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you very much, Nicola. I think this was really very complete with a lot of information for everyone. And what we see clearly is that the profession is evolving, even in a big organization as international organization as the European Commission, and new profiles are rising all the time. So we have to keep that in mind for training. I will just check on that. Okay. Get back to your Slido, if you can, because there is another question now, taking into account what Nicola has just, explained, that we are always learning new things, and there are new profiles that accompany the main work of the translator. So how prepared do you feel to adapt to the technological advancements? So, well, most people in the middle, which is good, So, yeah, some are very, very confident, and actually, if we take these two, we are over, the majority feels quite confident, which is certainly a good thing. But it's true that times are changing, and we are changing with them. Good. Thanks. Let's move on now to one's very, very interesting project that our guest Nike Pocon will explain. As I said, Nike is Professor of Translation Studies and Chair of English in the Department of Translation Studies at the University of Ljubljana. And her research interests include the history of translation, directionality in translation, and community and healthcare interpreting. And she is the author of several monographs, including the monograph on translation away from one's mother tongue. The title is Challenging the Traditional Axioms. And then another monograph on ideological influences on the translation of children's literature in socialist Yugoslavia, titled Post-Socialist Translation Practices. She is also co-editor with Kaisa Koskinen, of the Handbook of Translation and Ethics, and is general editor of the first comprehensive Slovene history of literary translation, which won the National Award for Excellence in Research in 2024. Congratulations. It's so recent. She also served 2 terms on the board of the European Society for Translation Studies and was the first director of the International Doctorate in Translation Studies, IDTS network, from 2017 to 2022. And she is currently serving as the president of the Slovene Association for Translation Studies and is a member, as we said, of the board of the EMT, the European Masters in Translation Network. So Professor Pocon will talk about networking opportunities and doctoral studies, which I think will be very interesting for all attendees, and will present the DOTS project, which is a doctoral and teacher training summer school, and I believe you will find it very particularly interesting. And just before her presentation, we will ask you some questions. Again, sorry. Have you been asked to teach translation or interpreting classes during your doctoral studies? Yes, no. Yes, mostly yes. Okay, Good majority, yes. Okay, good. So 58 yes and no, increasing 62 yes. Well, okay.
Jumping up.
Stop it. Let's say 50-50. Okay, we agree on that. So, yeah, okay. Another question, have you been trained how to teach translation or interpreting classes at university level? No, never. Okay. So yeah, here actually we do see a difference because a lot never have been trained.
Yes.
So yeah, that's
Well, it's not surprising.
it's not surprising. And a last question: how many colleagues from abroad do you know personally who are doing research similar to yours?
From abroad.
From abroad. Not surprising, I think, as well, or more surprising. I didn't want to say.
It's nice.
Okay.
Relevant question.
It is.
Thank you very much for answering.
So thank you. Thank you for your answers because actually, yeah, Professor Foucault is going to talk about that. So please, Nike.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's like musical chairs.
Exactly.
Yes. Thank you for your kind words, Sara. Le agradezco su amable invitación, but here I will stop. I will, in fact, link my presentation to Nicola's presentation on the activities of the EMT network, because at one point within the EMT network, we were concerned with the very question you posed yourself for this Translating Europe workshop. And this is what to expect from translation interpreter trainers in the 21st century. And our response was that we drafted also a profile of the EMT translator trainer, which also has, as you can see, 5 different competencies, and I'm not going to go into details. Probably all of those of us who teach, we know that assessment is something we feel quite insecure about, and other organizational, interpersonal, I think we can all feel that we have some strong points and some weak points here. And as Nicola said, EU has no competence, so it has no power to interfere with the educational matters of its member states, but it can provide guidelines, and this is what we attempted to do. And one of the things we said that there should be certain fundamental requirements that every person entering the profession of a translator trainer should have. Again, as Nicola said, let me show you what we meant by that. We know that there is quite a discrepancy, different systems in different member states. And we said, of course, you have to take into account the local legislation, but that there should be a level, minimum requirement, at least BA level. Because we've seen that sometimes at some training institution, even that was not the norm. So at least BA level, but then also relevant professional practice. And that's why it's so important that we keep contacts with the market so that people who teach should also be able to do that in the market, what they teach. So if you teach translation, you should also be able yourself to do a translation that would be paid for in the market, or have experience in terminology management, or in even monolingual reviewing, if that's what you teach. Then we said appropriate teacher training also, that this is something I know I was also pushed into a classroom and say, fend for yourself, do whatever you can. either in a formal training or as a separate course, some teacher training course, so that people should be prepared before they are put into a classroom. And I don't know what's your experience from your schools that you attend or that you work at, but sometimes we invite people from excellent translators from the market, do not prepare them and ask them to teach. That's quite unfair. It is a skill, a profession of our own, and we need to provide that framework for this valuable input we get from our practicing colleagues. And finally, we also said that there should be some knowledge of translation studies scholarship that translator trainers should have, but of course in the field that they teach. So that what is relevant for the course. So they should know which textbooks exist, what kind of scholarship is written on the particular topic they teach. So we insisted on that. Why? Why did we insist on the knowledge of translation studies? Well, we believe that translators who are capable to meet the demands of the market should be trained at translator training institutes, and that this should provide high quality teaching in line with what's happening in the market, but also in line with what's been the latest findings in the field. You know that we produce a lot of research connected with teaching translation as well, and we shouldn't ignore that in our classrooms. But, of course, if we want to reach that goal, we need teachers who are trained in translation studies, and we shouldn't rely on what used to be the usual tactics. I myself come from literary fields, so that we actually depend on other fields to train our trainers. I think we should move beyond that. And of course, the most reliable source of finding a solid translation studies knowledge is within the doctoral studies, the structured doctoral studies, and that's why it's so important. And I'm so glad to see so many doctoral students here. Our discipline will die out if we don't insist on doctoral studies. It is the basics. So, at one point, we realized that there are quite a lot of doctoral studies around with translation studies, focusing on translation studies, or having distinct translation study component within it. So there are, again, different system of doctoral studies around in Europe and larger. And we set up a network where we wanted somehow to sift through different programs, but it was not so much here with DMT, it was quality label. When we started, there was new MA programs were mushrooming around, and some of them were just traditional language training, but they called themselves, for example, translator training. Here it was not that. Here we felt that there is a need for a closer collaboration. We've seen that one institute was very strong, for example, in media translation studies, other in interpreting, and so on. And that here we could join forces. And we found out IDTS, so International Doctorate in Translation Studies. At the moment, it consists of 17 member institutions from 12 countries. I hope some of the universities you work at or you know are on this list as well. And if you are a member, I would draw your attention to what you can, as a doctoral student, get out of such a network. There are various things. One of the things is that we created a registry where teachers from all these member institutions, 80 plus of them, offered or said that they're willing to participate at the doctoral training at some other institutions in different forms, either as supervisors, co-supervisors. They're willing to organize the workshop or give a lecture or just welcome you when you visit them. And it's nice to see, because some very big names, people that you quoted in your presentations, are on the list. And maybe you can go and say, look, I'm here, could you help me? You would need just a bit of a boost in your doctoral studies, and it helps sometimes. And we all signed Erasmus Plus mobility, and I don't know whether you are aware it exists for doctoral students as well. Now they've shortened it to 14 days, which I think it suits well. So you can have 14 or more, but 14 days is fine because we all have other obligations. And they're quite generous, these supports. So you can go and visit and take, really get in contact with the people that you study. And that's important. Then support in financial is given to graduate competence like this one. And we've organized a series of them from 1918 to 2022. And now the new board is organizing talk series which are online, which is again they go along with the times. One was done by a colleague from Dublin City University, Joss Morkins, on the impact of technological developments on translation research project, and the next one is going to be on tools for systematic literature reviews. We organize things also for trainers. So yes, these are for students, but we had in mind trainers as well. So supervisors, because again, honestly, I know that there are many of you who supervise doctoral studies. Have you ever been given any training on how to do that? Probably not. And still, it is a skill. So Anthony Pym was talking about that. And Brian Baer gave a workshop on ethics in research, which now, it's now one of the central problems, data sharing and so on. You have open access and so on. All these things need to be thought through carefully. We have even created a database of online course materials. They're not very exciting. They're video blogs, mainly me talking to some friends, but on different methods, on linguistic landscapes that you can use when you look at, for example, multilingual environment. Kaisa talks about love and breakup letters, which seems funny, but it's in fact a methodological approach to measure affect, emotions, a kind of usability study, for example, attitude of translators towards technology. You can do with that. Interesting tool. And then with OT and archival research. So this is it. So if you're a member, use our resources. For goodness sake, use it. Otherwise it makes no sense. If you're not, encourage your supervisors to join us. The next call for members is going to be launched at the EST conference in Leeds in 2025. But more info, it's on that webpage. Okay, so what we've seen is that the best way to get this TS knowledge is within a structured doctoral program. But sometimes you don't get, and I see from your answers, the opportunity to connect with researchers who do the similar work abroad. You get somehow more imbibed on your home institution or home state. And that's why, but you need some certain degree of internationalization, and you can get it through such conferences as this one. It's an excellent opportunity. The other way, what you could do is doctoral schools. And there are many doctoral schools. I couldn't put them on a slide. There are so many, and some of them are sporadic or connected with a conference or with a certain project, etc. There are many around. but some of them are they are running for quite a while. I think the first one was organized by José Lambert at the Katholieke Universiteit Leuven in Belgium, called CETRA, and it's running since 1989 onwards. I think this one was the first one. Probably some of you have been there. Then there was quite a popular one that ran from 2002 until 2013, organized by three British University College London, University of Manchester, and University of Edinburgh, and then they opened also a campus, so sometimes it was organized in Hong Kong in 2009, and Spiritus Agens was Mona Baker, right? And then she retired, this one closed, but now she's closely connected to this last one, to the CISU Translation Research School in Shanghai, that's organized every second year, and once in Hong Kong, once in Shanghai. So you have this kind of continuation with a bit of a break in between. Then you have one at Universitat Autónoma that's been running since 2010, and I've seen that there you can use Spanish. All the rest are English. Then ours started in 2012. I'll talk more about this one because it combines also teacher training. In 2017, University of Vienna launched a summer school focusing on historical research, and now the venue has been transferred to the University of Graz. So this is just a few of them. These function in a similar way. So the structure is similar. So I'll explain ours, but have a look at the different ones. There aren't many differences. So the aim, but each of these schools has a certain angle. Sorry. Is that me? Should stop? Don't worry. Okay. Each of these schools has a certain angle. Our angle is not only to assist individual researchers in their individual research, so provide them theory, methodological support, etc., but also to provide teacher training. So because we've seen that a lot of young scholars teach and are lost when doing this. It all starts, like everything, it starts with a group of friends. You can see a group of women of the same age. We were much younger when we started. The photograph was taken a year ago and 2 years ago. So you have Outi Palaposki from Finland, from Turku, Kaisa Koskinen from Tampere, me from Ljubljana, Shekna Stair Burshaga from Boğaziçi University in Istanbul, and Dorothy Kelly, whom you probably know from the University of Granada. So we set it up, and we started in 2012, but the venue rotates, either in Slovenia, in Spain, in Turkey, or in Finland, and we always invite one guest professor, like the star of the show, and I'm pretty sure you know some of them. We had Michaela Wolf, Douglas Robinson, Anthony Pym, Chesterman and Gambier, Brian Baer, Mona Baker, Roberto Valdeon, Lawrence Venuti, Shebnam Suzam Sarajeva, Maria Gonzalez Davis, Hannah Risku, Michael Cronin was in Piran last year. And this year, which is going to be organized in Istanbul, we have guest professor Jorge Diaz-Cintas. So you have, and most probably a year after, it will be in Granada, which will be close to you. So what we've seen is that students flock to the school that's nearer, which makes sense. It makes perfect sense. Now, what do? We discuss theory critically, but our focus is on historical perspective. We discuss methodological approaches, and our focus is on historical and sociological approach. And Kaisa and me, we like deconstruction. We're from some other time, so we always also would talk a bit of that. But we also have teacher training elements. So a few sessions are dedicated to that. So you would have a bit of theory, a bit of methodology, teacher training. But the best thing for you are individual tutorials. So you are actually almost forced to talk to the teaching staff and to the guest professors about your research. And this clarifies your thoughts. Guest professors, they have, for a week, they have a series of 5 lectures, and you have a graduate conference at the end. What do you have to do? So you have to, as a student, you have to participate, you have to discuss, you have to prepare a presentation and present that during the graduate conference, and you have to submit an article. So we also focus on that, on academic writing, within 2 months after the completion of the school, and we review it and you get the feedback. And if it is good, we publish it. So what do you get at the end? If you don't submit the article, just the certificate, but if you do submit the article, you get a pass certificate with 10 ECTS credit points. So you can maybe then use that for your individual program. Now, but let me finish. It is intensive work, but it's a lot of fun. Summer schools are fun. It's a combination of holidays and work. And you meet new people, and people who are interested in the same weird things as you are. And we had from 2012 to 2024, 185 students for 37 countries. Teachers come from these member institutions, but also from the UK, the USA, and Poland. We had them, and guest professors from all these countries enumerated here. So let me show you the affiliation. So just the universities these students come from. If I looked at their nationalities, the list would be even longer. But half of them would come from Spain, Finland, Slovenia, and Turkey. But the other half from other 33 countries, from South Africa, Australia, I mean, it's the entire world, yes. So, and this is what makes the whole thing fun. Networking. Maybe one of the most important things of summer schools is that you get friends, that you meet friends, and that this relationship you create lasts for not only your career, even longer. So when you want to propose a project, such projects that Nicola was telling you about, which are international, you know whom to turn to. You know people from abroad. And when you come to a conference like EST conference and others, you will surely meet at least one, if not more, of your colleagues from the summer schools. So I do encourage you, do have a look at the different summer schools that exist, and I'm sure you will find one that will suit your interests and your research purpose as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nick. This was really inspiring, and I hope everybody is already, going to the page and enrolling in the summer school. And also, one important thing, networking. And Nicola said it, and Nick said it, and I think that is really important. And we see it today in these conferences. These conferences are useful for that. And also what you do in these studies and in these projects is useful in that way. Networking, just don't stay with yourself. Just, sometimes I'm very poor company for myself sometimes. So really, get out and meet other people. And then you can stay at home on your sofa and read if you want sometimes, but really networking is really important. We're going to listen now to another project, which is very special project. Erasmus Plus project, and we have here with us Patricia Rodriguez, which I said is a senior lecturer in the Department of Translation, Interpreting and East Asian Studies of the Universitat Autònoma de Barcelona. And her research interests include translator training, corpus linguistics applied to translation, and translation competence, its acquisition and the identification of levels. And her doctoral thesis on developing competence in the use of electronic corpora for translator training earned a number of accolades, actually. She has been a member of the PACT research group and chair of the TREC
Network.
And she has participated in 20 regional, national, and international funded projects, and the most recently completed one is the European project effort, which is the one she will be presenting today, and she coordinated that project. And she is author of over 50 publications about translator training, corpora, and translation competence. And she is also the principal investigator of the 40 research group and currently coordinates a small project aimed at raising awareness of the environmental impact of translators' professional activities among teachers, students, and practitioners. And between brackets, this is a huge topic, and we are not even starting, to talk about it. And as I have mentioned, Patricia coordinated the effort project, which is an Erasmus Plus project. And the aim of this project is to develop a reference framework with the key competences for written translation. But she will tell all the details about it. And first, again, there is a question on Slido for all of you. This is open text. Please, not very long, but what additional skills do you believe future translators will need that are not currently emphasized in training programs? Okay. Oh, marketing and negotiation, technological skills, ethics. Okay.
A lot of culture.
Self-branding, self-branding and reputation. That's a good one. AI, adaptability. Good. Very, very, some of them very, very interesting and very original. No machines, okay. Human communication, intercultural skills.
Entrepreneurial.
Entrepreneurial is coming up many times.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you so much for your answers, and I give the word to Patricia.
Yep. Okay.
Hacia adelante.
Yeah. Is this the first one?
Yeah.
Okay, just let me say first.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your presentation and for your invitation to take part in this Translation Europe workshop. It's always a pleasure to come to visit Madrid and also to meet old and new colleagues. Well, first of all, I would like to make a question. It's not a Slido question, because I would like you to think for a second that if I told you that I have a level of Portuguese of a B2, would you know what I mean? Yeah, you would know more or less what I'm able to do. Or if I say that I have a level A1 in German, you would know more or less what I can do, what I'm able to do. And if I ask you, for example, in the context of Spain, what's the minimum exit level of the degree in English studies? What's the minimum level, exit level of English? If someone does a degree in English studies, what would it be? What's the exit level expected? C1, yeah? And everybody knows more or less what that means, right? Okay, let me ask you now. What's your level of translation competence? Just for a second, think. Is it advanced? Is it intermediate? Is it basic? Or wait? What do you mean? What do you mean? In what language combination? In what direction is it translating into or out of my mother tongue or my language of habitual use? In what areas of specialization? Are we talking about technical translation, general translation, literary translation? What are we talking about? But mind that we always say that, okay, you may have a BA in translation and interpreting, you may have a master's degree in translation and interpreting, and would everybody know what the other is able to do as far as their B language or their first foreign language is concerned, or their second foreign language is concerned, or if they have a master's degree, would we know what they are able to do exactly? No, not really. And that's a situation throughout not Europe, the world. Even within the same country, we don't necessarily know what it means. Even within the same degree, a BA degree, you have a first foreign language and a second foreign language, and you don't finish. You don't graduate with the same level of translation competence. In spite of that, you get your degree, your certificate, and it says that you are a graduate in translation and interpreting in English and German. But it wouldn't be the same level between English and German, or English and Italian. And if we just refer to your second foreign language or your third foreign language, it wouldn't be you wouldn't reach the same level if you're a Spaniard and you were doing Italian than if you were doing Japanese. So this is a bit of a mess, or at least it's not clear at all. And also, if we talk about master's degrees, there are master's degrees all throughout Europe and the world that have 60 credits, but others have 120. Some master's degrees take 1 year and others 2 years, or a year and a half, some of them. Some of them are more general, some are specialized. Again, some are language specific, some others are not. So again, if someone from a country or a background that I'm not familiar with and tell me that they have a BA or a master's degree in translation, I wouldn't know exactly what they are able to do. So, and that's it's not just that it's not clear, but it's also unfair to a certain extent, or it may be unfair, because sometimes it happens that in master's degrees, the level of translation competence is lower than for certain BAs. So someone with a master's degree, may have a lower competence, and that happens. I mean, even at my home institution at the UAB, there is one of the master's degrees is kind of more general, and this from the students we get and the competencies we train in. Sometimes the level of translation competence is not as high as the one in our BA. So but it's still a master's degree in translation. So, because there's no prescription in this case, there's nothing that says that it shouldn't be, I mean, how it should be. Yeah. Okay, so in order to maybe put some order in all this mess, we thought of organizing this project with the aim of elaborating a European framework, or working towards having a European framework of reference for translation, which was coordinated from the UEB, but we were in 10 partners overall. We had partners from all over Europe, as you can see, all of them centers or very well-known centers of translator training, from Geneva, from Ljubljana. Nike was one of the partners. From Granada, Westminster, Aarhus, Joensuu, Utrecht, Wrocław, and Iași in Romania. Apart from these, from all these partners, we also had quite a few associated partners who are just partners, most of them translator training institutions that gave us support, who were interested in the potential results of this project. And we also had some collaborators from the industry and also from a languaging institution. Okay. So, as I said, the main aim was of effort was to elaborate a common reference framework for translation to be of use to both academic and professional arenas. Effort is a continuation, direct continuation of a project that the PACTA group had called NACT. But it's also, this comes in a long chain of research projects that the PACTA group had, and starting with projects to study translation research, and then acquisition of translation research, and then the establishment of translation competence levels, and then effort, and then evaluation. So it's a long chain, and every research project meant a step forward in knowing about translation competence better, and how it works, and how it's acquired, and the different levels that it may have. All this is what we aim to get someday, is to be able to speak about a scale of translation competence levels like the one for the CEFR, for the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages. That, as I started my talk, everybody's familiar with and everybody can recognize. So it would be great if ever we could say, hey, I've got a translation competence level of B1 in the combination Italian-Spanish, right? Or I've got a C1 translation competence level in the translation of technical texts between German and Catalan, right? So that would be great. Or it would be great if we could say that a BA in translation and interpreting, the exit level is a B2 for this language combination and C1 for this other language combination. So that would be great. And the same goes for master's degrees. Again, let me say that this doesn't aim to be prescriptive. So it's like Nicola was saying, there's a description, there are guidelines, or there are materials that could be used, or they are suggested, they may be recommended at some point by some institution, but they're not prescriptive. So there may be someday a master's degree that would say that their graduates will have a B1 translation competence level in a certain area or in a certain language combination. So they don't necessarily have to be of the top level. It depends on the type of master's degree. Yeah, and also because we must acknowledge the difference between the training provided in different countries. For example, in Spain we have lots and lots of translator training institutions, and we have fully fledged BA degrees. But in other countries, there's no such thing if they only have them at master's level. So maybe the requirements will be different, and the entrance and exit levels will be different. So I don't know. It's just like I said. I insist it doesn't mean to be prescriptive. For this project, for effort, we had like two main goals at the beginning. For levels A and B, levels A and B are pretty much done. And what we wanted to do was to refine them, to polish them as far as we could, and then validate them. With testing those two levels, A1, A2, B1, B2, with thousands of students if possible, right? The same as it happened with the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, that it was tested with thousands of students. But the evaluators, in this case, they thought that, well, it's pretty done, it's pretty well done, these A and B levels, so no, let's not fund the part of validating. So we couldn't do that for this project. But anyway, we did some refinement. And another goal was, and this one in relation to level C, was to establish a preliminary proposal of the scripters for this translation level in certain key fields of specialization. We'll have a look at that later. Okay, why all this? Why did we think that this would be a good idea? And what took us to propose this project? Well, there's, like we have already acknowledged, there's no such thing as a common European framework of reference for translation like there is for languages, and is so useful because at the end of the day is speaking the same language. So and we don't so far. Okay, there have been very few attempts to produce translation competence scales. There are translation competence models. Some of them are empirically based, others are not. But translation competence scales, there are only very few attempts. There's a need, we've already seen that there's a need for academic harmonization because there's a lack of clarity in translator training, there's disparity in degrees and masters currently offered. Yeah. There are different levels of performance as well and fields of specialization in the profession. There are different levels of performance, and maybe sometimes in certain contexts the market doesn't need an optimum level of performance. They may need something not as optimum because of whatever reason, because there may not be time for it, because there may not be enough budget for it. So it would be great if that could be established in a sort of standard way, so that again, that could be understood. And finally, there's a growing academic and professional mobility. So again, it would be great if we all talked the same language. Why would this be good for education? What's the good impact it may have on education? It would be useful for trainers and for students too. It could serve as a guide for progression of difficulty and assessment, and also comparison of grading systems. again, because different translator training centers do it differently. And also, like I said, progression of difficulty, because sometimes I've found it myself talking to colleagues who've been not researchers, but colleagues and practitioners who have been teaching for many, many years, and you ask them, like, what you do, like, at the end of this semester that you don't do at the beginning, or, well, I just give them texts which are more difficult. But in what way, in what sense are they more difficult? So, or what you do in your third year of a BA translation and interpreting degree that you don't do in your second year as a teacher, and sometimes they are not so able to explain themselves. A framework like this could be a reference for designing translation programs and for developing teaching materials accordingly to these levels. And it could also be a reference for certification purposes and recognition of diplomas, like between different countries as well. What would the impact be, or maybe on the profession? Well, we would have clear definitions of translator performance levels. And it could be useful for translators and employers, for example, when it comes to accrediting levels, or for recruitment procedures. If what's needed for a certain post is a C2 translation competence level translator, and not a B1 and not a B2. If a C2 level is required, and that means that they are expert in one or more areas of specialization. So that would be defined and clear. And a framework like this could also be an additional reference for quality assurance. And if we dream about it, we could even think of ISO standards in the future. Well, okay. So within the master, 5 minutes. Oh my God! Oh my. Okay. So we did these two studies: one to refine levels A and B, and one to establish level C. Right. Results for study one. And I'll show you the websites in a second. Everything you need to know about this proposal, but particularly for levels A and B, is on this document called Third NACT proposal. Every definition, every explanation of why anything is like it is, you find it there, and it's a document that is open. Can be accessed openly on our website. Then there is a guide that tells you who is this framework for, how it works, etc. This is quite interesting, because there's a section with examples of texts of each level in the case of A and B levels, and there you can see very clearly how these texts would look like. Yeah, these are just examples, but it may give you a good idea. Then there's a glossary with all the terms used, and very important, very interesting, we think, is a self-assessment tool. Let me just go to our website, which is www.effortproject.eu. It's opening. Okay. Right. Okay. Okay. So there you have all these sections on the left-hand menu. All these sections that I've just mentioned, examples, glossary, etc. And here on the this blue tab, you have the self-assessment tool, which is a tool to assess your translation competence levels. Is it here? Yeah. Okay, self-assessment tool. This works just for levels A and B. Yeah? A1, A2, B1, B2. Okay, you have some explanations there and some more useful documents. this annex with examples of text genres which could be expected to be translated in each level. What is clear is that in many cases, or in quite a few cases, you will find the same text genre in different levels, because you could have, for example, a recipe, a cooking recipe that could be could have a degree of difficulty, or could suit a translation competence level of A1 if it's a very simple recipe. But it could be, we could have a recipe of a B2 level, or even a C level of translation competence, if there are lots of cultural references, quite embedded culturally, if there are very rare ingredients, whatever. But there can be different degrees for the same genre. There can be different degrees of difficulty. So yeah, I mean, you'll find examples there. And also of examples of cultural and world knowledge, and documentation resources and technological resources. Okay, let me just move to the actual self-assessment tool. You need to enter some personal details, although it's anonymous. This is just for record. And you must state your language combination, because, like we said, I mean, you may not have the same translation competence in one language combination or other, or in the same, or in different directions as well. If you're translating from English into Spanish or from Spanish into English, it won't be the same level of translation competence. So, how this works? You have to move through the 5 competences that this framework uses: language competence, extra-linguistic competence, instrumental competence, service provision competence, and methodological and strategic competences. These are all the knowledge and skills that and attitudes that a translator is supposed to be able to do, to have, and to be able to do at different levels. So, and here, for each competence, you have quite a few descriptors, competence descriptors, and each user should tick all of them, all the descriptors with which they identify themselves, all of them. For example, I can say, okay, as far as language competence is concerned, I can understand different types of non-specialized source language text in standard language, to which end a minimum of CFR reading comprehension level of B2 is desirable. Okay, can I do this? Yes, okay. I can understand, or I can produce different texts. Language competence is all about understanding and producing texts, right? So I'm just going to tick any descriptors. Extra-linguistic competence is all about cultural knowledge, world knowledge, and also thematic specialized knowledge. So, for example, I can apply advanced world knowledge to translate simple semi-specialized text corresponding to at least one area of professional specialization in translation. Okay, I can do this, okay, and I can do that, and I can do that as well. All these that now it may look a bit obscure to you, like what it is a semi-specialized text, what it is a advanced world knowledge, all that is defined in the third NACT proposal. In that is a 50-page document, but everything is there. Okay, just let me move. Instrumental competence, everything about the use of resources and technology. I'll just take anything. Yeah. Okay. Service provision competence, everything related to the translation practice, professional translation practice. For example, I can meet the profession's ethical requirements when carrying out a translation task and when interacting with the actors involved in a translation assignment. Okay. Yep. Just Since I'm taking descriptors like a bit randomly, probably the result will be a bit of a messed up translation competence. But anyway, it's just to show you. And methodological and strategic competence, obviously, all the methods and strategies that a translator may put into place to compensate for deficiencies in other competences, etc. There's a lot about being able to solve translation problems, not just, but there's a lot about being able to solve problems. So I can solve intentionality problems, I can solve explicit, basic, thematic problems, etc. Right? Okay. So this is the last one. Send self-assessment. Okay. And what you get is a record of what you've ticked, what the user has ticked. Yeah? Okay. One of the first things, you can have it printed and you get a PDF file with all the results and all the descriptors you've ticked. If you noticed, it was blind for the levels. Before it was blind, now it shows. It shows that for this competence, I chose 2 descriptors from level B2. For this one, another 2 from B1. Yeah, and it says, it makes the competencies explicit. This is important because the very first thing it says is this is not an official certificate. It is merely the result of a self-test developed as part of the effort project, blah, blah. Someday, maybe in the future, this will become a certificate. But that depends very much on the institutions that will implement it and how it will be implemented. Part of the work that still needs to be done is designing activities that will help evaluate or test these competence levels. There's another project that finished a couple of years ago, and this was on evaluation, and they managed to test several levels, A1, A2, B1, B2. Yep, not B1, just B1, not B2. But it takes, well, obviously a lot of time. One thing, and this is the last one, one thing is that it would be ideal if after all this clicking, we got a result of, okay, you've got a B1 translation competence level B1. But that is extremely complex, because that would mean calculating the weighting between all these competences and even descriptors, because not all of them have the same importance, the same relevance for translation competence. Methodological and strategic competence is more important than, for example, service provision competence, right? Or an instrumental competence may be very important in certain areas of specialization, but not in others. So it would be great if we could make permutations and say, like, oh, this plus this plus this plus this gives a result of this level. But we are not there yet. That would be extremely complex. But we'll keep working, and I haven't been able to show you or to explain you about the C level, which refers to levels to the specialist level, not specialized, but specialist level of translation competence in our case, 5 different areas of specialization: legal translation, economic, scientific, technical, and literary. So that will be for another day. But please, I invite you to have a look at our website, and please navigate and try the self-assessment tool that you can try with your students. That could be also a nice activity, maybe to start like a starting point for other activities. So thank you very much. Sorry.
Thank you, Patricia. Patricia, I'm so sorry we don't have more time because actually it is very interesting to see that, you know, there is an effort, as the name says, to try to clarify things in order, you know, to be able to a bit compare and also see our own levels of competence. So yes, I think we might do a workshop just, you know, to see how everything unfolds in the project. But you can already go to the website and try and see what you get. I will actually. I will see. And we have been talking about competences, and Nicola has mentioned the EMT framework and skills and competences, and what happens with all those skills and competences where the students get into the market. And that's why we wanted to see also what is going on in the market, and if all these efforts I'm not what you are doing, you know, teaching in pluralis majestatis, all the efforts you are doing, you know, in order to prepare the future generations, if those skills correspond to what the market needs right now or will need in the future. So we have invited Yolanda, which many of you know because she was a teacher at this university. And she is a freelance conference interpreter and translator, and she studied translation and interpreting at the University of Salamanca. I'm going to, near the micro, and conference interpreting at the University of Geneva. And she also has a master's degree in revenue management, marketing, and communications. She has lived and worked in 4 different countries and has vast corporate experience in different industries, including investment banking. And she translates for international organizations and companies, mostly finance and contracts, and she interprets for Spanish national TV and in the fascinatingly varied Spanish and European private markets. She is passionate about translation, interpreting, and business, and she feels in her element when she trains fellow aspiring translators and interpreters. And she was a lecturer, as I say here, at the Universidad Complutense for 3.5 years. And she is the founder of Covenant Global, which is a non-traditional multilingual communications consulting company which offers translation, interpreting as specialized training services for professionals. And also advocates, where is my other page? Here, sorry, for the translation and interpreting professions. And her aim is to bridge the gap between translators and interpreters and businesses. And today, thank you for being here, she will guide us a bit inside the market needs and what she sees is happening and what she thinks could help. And she will try to offer us some food for thought about the skills and the training needs for future professionals. So thank you very much, and we will start with a question over there. If you can grab your phones again, please. I think we saw a bit of this in another question before. How important it is for translation interpreting programs to include training on soft and interdisciplinary skills such as negotiation or project management. And well, I think everybody agrees. So good. And is actually one of the competences that is included also in the EMT framework. But it was not so popular, at least when I studied. So it's good that, training programs have improved. So yeah, the vast majority considers it important. If you can go to the next one. There's another question. This is your feeling, like how prepared do you feel graduates are to handle real-world translation projects, immediately after completing their training? Immediately after.
BA.
Okay.
Not at all.
No, MA, yes, the last level of training, okay, yes. MA. Yeah. Well, good. Quite good.
Quite good.
Okay, excellent. Okay. Yeah.
It depends on the level.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. Thank you for your answers. Yolanda, the floor is yours.
Okay, so good afternoon, good evening now, and thank you, Sarah, for the kind introduction. Thank you to my fellow panelists. It was really, really interesting. Had I known about your project, I could have told a client the other day when he said, you translate financial statements from English into Spanish. Can you do these ones from German? And I said, well, that depends. Do you have 3 months? So, it would have been interesting to say, I'm like a B1 level, so you want someone a bit higher up. Okay, so as Sarah was saying, I'm a conference interpreter and translator. I wanted to highlight the fact that I studied translation and interpreting. I know that we can come to translation and interpreting from many different walks of life, but I am a translator and interpreter through and through. And I think it's important for what I'm going to tell you today, because I'm going to try to give you my impressions, about the relationship of training and real life. And also it's important to say that I was an interpreter trainer as well, so I have a little bit of experience on that as well. Okay, so I'm going to divide this presentation in 3 parts: theory, practice, and a short reflection before we leave. When we talk about translation theory, I think the question that usually comes to mind is, what do I need this for? I know that's the case because it happened to me when I was a student. And what I want to show you today is, well, actually, before we do that, I did a little search on Google to see what people thought about translation theory in practice. And what came up was that it was too academic, that it was aimed at literary translation for some reason, but that's the impression that people had, apparently, and that there's no link to professional practice. Do you agree with this? The answer is Jein, which is one of my favorite words in German, because it's yes and no at the same time. Why am I saying this? Before I go into that, I also thought that it was difficult to grasp, because it's something that you study in your first, maybe second year of your degree. You have very limited experience in translation, and there are many things that you're being told that you don't necessarily understand. But, and this is a big but, when you then go into real life, was this relevant? Yes, it was. This is why I think it's relevant. Say you're doing marketing translation, which is very much embedded in the culture, the original culture. You are constantly making decisions on whether you're going to leave things as they are so that they sound exotic in the translation, or whether you are going to change that so that the audience understands them. That, my friends, is Lawrence Venuti telling us about foreignization or domestication. So was this relevant to you? I would say it was. And let me show you just a very quick example of what I think is foreignization going wrong. Just very quickly. It's not working. Yeah, I'm clicking. No, not really. Not working. Okay.
Let's try again
Let's see. This is just to make it more interesting. No? Okay.
Technology not working.
Okay, so we said we needed to learn about technology. Maybe this is proof that we do. Okay, so I was just going to show you, this is something that Spanish people will be familiar with when Madrid presented their bid to host the Olympic Games, we had the then mayor of Madrid give a speech about, why Madrid was a good choice. She was saying it with a very thick Spanish accent, and they decided at some point that it would be nice to say, imagine having a nice cup of café con leche at the Plaza Mayor. Now, if you have a nice British person saying a nice cup of café con leche, that sounds exotic. If you have a Spanish person saying a nice cup of café con leche, it just sounds weird, So is translation theory important? Yes, it is. If you don't know that, you might make that mistake. And that was a big mistake, and it was there for everyone to see, okay? So I wouldn't have wanted to be the person who okayed that speech. If they'd known about Lawrence Venuti, they wouldn't have okayed it. Other things that I think translation theory is interesting for, when we're doing legal translation, we're constantly making choices about equivalence. There are no absolute equivalents. And you might think this is common sense, but common sense is not that common. Mm-hmm. And this is actually Basnet and NIDA telling us that when you're trying to find equivalence, maybe the equivalents are not always absolute, okay? So this is just my take, just two very simple examples of why I think translation theory is not only relevant, but it's necessary. And I think it does make you a better translator and interpreter, because when you are making decisions, you're making them based on something that you've learned, that you know is true, that someone has researched for you and is telling you this is how it works and this is why it doesn't work. And I actually, when I teach interpreting, I use Lederer Seleskovich's Paris Triangle to talk about context and deverbalization. So when I teach my students about deverbalization, I always show them the Paris Triangle. And it's so clear, and it makes so much sense. So once again, is it necessary? Yes, I definitely think it is. However, another big however, maybe it needs some reframing. It's true that I don't think we grasp the importance of translation theory when we are studying, especially during undergraduate studies, because we don't know enough about translation. And to be honest, most of us got into translation because we wanted to translate books. So what are these people telling us about, So I think we need to try and make that link. Also, generations are changing. I think my generation was a bit more sort of obedient. You would go to class, your teachers would say you have to learn this, and you would just learn it. And I think new generations, they grew up with the internet, with information at their fingertips. They want to know why. I had this conversation with some of my students one day, and we were talking about translation theory and terminology and so on. And I told them why I thought it was important, and I explained this. And one of them was looking aghast, and I said, "What's wrong?" And she said, "Well, I'm upset." I said, "Why are you upset?" She said, "Because had I known this was so important, I would have worked harder." And I think that's why it is important to make that link and to explain to them. And these new generations, more than ever, they want to know why we are telling them. For us, it made sense. If we're teaching it at university, it's because we need to know it. Whereas I think these generations are changing a little bit the way they see the world. So, what do we learn now in translation and interpreting studies? It's been said before, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. We do learn about translation theory and terminology. Languages, I suppose it depends. We've already mentioned that it depends on the country and so on. We learn specialisms. I think this is very important because the fact that you study audiovisual translation, legal translation, financial translation, in undergraduate studies doesn't mean that you're going to be already a specialist, but it gives you an idea of what that might look like. And it gives you an idea of whether that might fit into the future that you want and that you see for yourself. We teach professional practice, we've already said. In some instances we do, in some instances we don't do so much. I know that we have a subject here at Complutense where we teach them about project management and how to do all those things, but maybe not all universities teach that. What should we learn? And this is something that I've been hearing from undergraduate students, from professionals. We've heard it here before as well. We should be learning AI. I would say yes, but AI evolves way too fast. So maybe we should look into what we can teach in terms of AI. There's definitely, we need to be aware that AI is out there. We need to know what AI can do and what AI cannot do, and we need to know how to use it to our advantage. But it's true that it changes all the time, and it changes so fast. And ChatGPT has nothing to do today with what it was like a few months ago. So, it's something that I think we definitely need to teach, but we need to find a way of making it relevant throughout time. Business, it's something that's come up earlier as well. We need to teach business. Yes, we need to tell students about market reality, true, that they need to know, especially because in these professions, translation and interpreting, we're going to be mostly freelancers. So it's true that we need to learn about the market. But what do we forget? We forget, I think, as students, that university should be a safe environment for experimentation. Please forget about marks. We all want good marks. We all do. And you will get there. But try experiment, because you will not get the chance again in real life. If you don't come here, if you don't play with words, if you don't say a relaxing cup of café con leche and you do it wrong, you're never going to learn. It's worse to make that mistake when you're doing that with a client. And I think this, as students, we tend to forget. Something else we tend to forget is that we have to take charge of our own learning as well. You don't learn languages by taking a 4-year degree at university or by going to a language school for 8 years. You have to go to the country. You have to be in touch with that country, with cultures. And I put up an exclamation mark next to cultures, because cultures make such a big difference. We all know that. This comes from translation theory as well. We all know that culture is key to translating. Very quick example, I was doing liaison interpreting for a client, English-speaking client, and they were talking to a French-speaking person, and they were doing some sort of audit for the company to see what processes they could improve. So the auditor is the person I was going with. He went into the room and he made lots of recommendations, and the other person was saying, oh, but we're already doing that. Oh, we're already doing that, and so on. And so when we came out of the first meeting, the English speaker was very frustrated, and he said to me, what can I do? What can I do? I keep telling them what to change, and they keep telling me that they're already doing it. And I said, this is probably a cultural thing, because French speakers, or these people in particular, they are used to hearing things like this and like that. So if you change just that, it might change everything. When we went to the next meeting, he did change that, and everything changed, and everything ran smoothly. We were there for a week, and the end was absolutely fantastic. Everyone was so happy. You wouldn't be able to tell that to your client if you don't know the culture. So you need to go out, you need to learn the languages, you need to learn about the culture. The first time I went to the UK, I was 15. And then I decided if I really wanted to learn English, I needed to go to the UK more. You can go to the UK, you can go to any English-speaking country, French-speaking country, whichever language you want to learn. Go there, take a job that you might not like. It might not be the job that you want to do for the rest of your life. And that is perfect, because then you won't be derailed. You will keep with your goal in mind, but you will learn the language, you will learn about the culture, you will be sharing with other people, and this is so important. So university has a lot to teach us, but we have to take charge of our own learning as well. We cannot expect university to tell us everything. The things I know about business, I know because I worked in companies when I was paying off the loan that I took out to study my master's. And that was a great experience, and this is why I translate financial statements nowadays. And not many people translate financial statements, and I love them because they tell me a story, and I understand the story because I was there at some point, So can we bridge the gap between what we feel we should be learning and what we're actually learning? We said that translation and interpreter trainers have to have real market experience. Here in Spain, we have lecturers. I don't know if you have them in other countries. They're called associates here in Spain, and it's usually professionals like me who come and teach at university. And I think this is a very important role as well. We don't do research, which is vital as well. As we were saying, if we don't have research, the profession dies. But we also need people who are in touch with the market and who can bring the market. Also, we need flexibility, because if you are teaching and you have very strict hours, you cannot work, especially if you're an interpreter, because you cannot tell your client, sorry, I'm teaching today, so can you have your meeting tomorrow or some other day? So we need flexibility for that as well. And definitely there has to be collaboration with academia. So what we're doing today, and what I know that you do very often here at Complutense as well, bring people from the market to academia so that they can all be in touch. We can have lots of collaborations. What does it mean for trainers? Being in touch with the market, as we've said before, specific training in technologies, as we mentioned, in business maybe as well, to be able to teach students about what they should know to start their own business. And what does the future look like? I think AI is a shared reality. I read on LinkedIn the other day, AI is coming for all of us. So, it's not just us, it's everyone. AI is going to affect everyone and everything. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means we need to adapt. We need to keep updated. We need to keep in touch with the reality of the profession. We need to accept which things AI can do and acknowledge them. Because the more we do it, the more our clients will trust us when we say, no, this cannot be done by AI. So, there are certain things that it can do. Well, let it do it and acknowledge it. And this will build trust for when we say, no, this needs to be done by a human. It will also highlight the value that humans bring to the table. The other thing is we need to keep learning and adapting. But we're lucky because this is second nature to us. If we're doing this, it's because we love learning and we love adapting. I had this friend in high school, and he said, Yanda, you study so much, you're going to become prime minister one day. And when I met him many years later, and he said, so did you become prime minister? I said, no, something better. I became a translator and interpreter, and therefore my job is to keep learning every single day of my life. So, I didn't need to be a prime minister. I could keep learning forever. So my final remarks would be, keep learning, keep experimenting, keep adapting and developing. This is the best job in the world, except if all you ever wanted to be was an engineer, a nurse, or a dog groomer. In that case, that's the best job in the world. This is really the best job in the world. And the training that we get is so cross-cutting. The CPD that we always follow is so in-depth. And our professional experience is so vast that we have skills that every single company will want for us, for themselves. So there's a future for us individually, but there's a future for the profession as well if we work together. This is a turning point, I think. We have a chance now to shape the future of our profession. We have a chance to say what AI can and cannot do, what we should keep doing. So let's seek more academia market collaboration. Let's unite and let's keep advocating. And let's connect if you want to keep talking about these things. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Yolanda. Because we are, I'm so sorry, we are a bit late, but 2 questions.
Okay. Hello, I have a question for Yolanda. because I'm a professional translator, and I've been working for almost 20 years now. And I wanted to ask you, what do you think about this growing demand from large translation agencies to do post-editing and AI training instead of translation itself? And they are like very huge intention to make things cheaper, faster, and if good translators that value themselves and know what they are capable and what the job costs don't take it, there's always somebody with less skills that come and take it. So this is what I wanted to ask. Thank you.
That's a very interesting question. My question to you is, do you want to do that? Do you want to do post-editing? Then that's not for you. There will always be markets for everything and everyone. I always make this comparison with airlines. There's Ryanair, there's Iberia, and there's Qatar Airways or even Emirates. There's airlines for everyone. And what this is doing is just creating different spaces. If you want to keep translating and you don't want to do post-editing, I don't think you have to do it. Maybe you have to change the way your business works. And I think this is where we really need to talk about business and about, I was saying the other day, if we keep charging per word, how are we going to convince people that we don't work with just words? You know, so we need to change the way we share our value with the clients, so that clients understand exactly what we bring to the table. And I'm not saying this is easy. I'm saying, you know, there needs to be a conversation, and this is a work that we all have to do. If you don't like post-editing, don't do it. I've never done it. Because I don't like it. I mean, there are people who like it, and it's really good for them, and they thrive, and that's fantastic. There's always going to be someone who wants it cheap, fast, and anything that they can get. And for yesterday, yeah. But if that's not your market, then you shouldn't be working in that market. I know it's not easy. I know saying, okay, change markets is not that easy. There's going to be a transition probably, but I think that's what we need to do. We need to focus on shifting the way we communicate what we do. We don't translate words. This is a Paris Triangle. We translate meaning. We translate cultures. We translate intentions. The machines can translate words, and they can do it very well for certain things. And if they can, well, good. And if some people like post-editing, then they should be doing it. I don't like it. I don't want to do it. But I think there will be room for everyone.
Another? Yeah, wait.
I would just add that this is a question you should address to professional associations. I think that now professional associations should step up and defend and also define the units for payment, for fees, etc. Reality is changing, and here I see this also our commitment in professional associations and the commitment of professional associations as such, as in fact as trade unions for freelance translators.
Thank you. I have a question for Patricia. And when I was hearing your presentation, I was thinking, like, of course, it's a really good idea. And I see, like, it will be especially useful for universities to say, like, I will teach you until you reach this level, for example. But my question is in the project, is there, how do I say this? Like, is there a possibility that there will be a university or another organization to evaluate this, like Instituto Cervantes, for example, and like who will it be? Or that's my question, because all that we all are translators here, and we all have like a C1 level in English. We all have that, but it doesn't matter that we all have a C1, because in reality, maybe some have and maybe some don't. So I don't know if I explain myself.
Yes, thank you very much for that question, because that's where we aim to go to, and that's what we aim to reach. But like I said, it may be at some point, it may be universities, but it most probably be institutions that will, or accreditation or certification bodies that will be doing those exams. And but there's still some work to be done to get there. Of course, there are already associations like ATA, American ATA, British ITI, British CIOL, that they have exams, they have levels. And they may be more or less well defined, because in other associations they also, and I don't want to mention any in particular, but there are some that they have exams for their members to be identified with or certified with the A level, but the description of that level takes like a couple of sentences. So the description is really poor, and I'm not really sure how they actually evaluate or say like, okay, you go in this box or the other. But yeah, definitely it will be. Hopefully, it will be someday. The Instituto Cervantes or maybe other other bodies. Translation associations, rather than not just language centers, because that would be that's a different path. But definitely, and that's very much very desirable. That translating a text may have, if you're translating it from Spanish into Catalan or from Spanish into Hindi. There may be some potential problems there, but they will be a bit different depending on the language combination. So but hopefully, for the time being, apart from all the work that we've done, that is, it's been decades that we've been working towards this point, but there's still much more to be done, and we need to create the need needs to be felt by the community, that this is necessary, and also by institutions. And we are already, we've already been listened to by the Commission or by the DGT, but it's a little by little, step by step job. But first of all, it needs to be felt as necessary by not just by the academia, because we wouldn't go very far if it's just the academia, but by the market, by the industry. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the questions, and we are closing because we are. You need to say something? Because it's really late. I'm so sorry. So all the thank yous go together. Thank you again to the organizers. Thank you to all participants, because your engagement and your participation was great. Thank you very much. Thank you to our speakers, because I couldn't think of 4 more talented women all women to be here today at this workshop. And I hope today's discussion were enriching to all of you, and I hope we will continue with the discussion and networking and collaborating. Thank you. Thank you.